Invincible. But with that being said, Adam Eve almost dies. Holy shit. I almost cried. I did cry, kind of. She doesn't. And the Adam Eve special gives you the reason why, because of her like Phoenix form or whatever. But dude, this is an insane fucking episode, dude. It is heart-wrenching. It is a beauty. It is. And I mentioned this last time. One of my biggest problems with this season is unfortunately the animation. Now, I'll give some context because I found out why. Essentially, the Invincible, as popular as it is, has a really small budget. It's kind of shit. Between season 1 and season 2 and 3, they changed animation studios. So season 1 is animated completely different studio than these seasons. They have way less time to animate it. So like, as much as it sucks, there is like reasons, whether justified or not, why the animation is down.
Sure.
But I think another reason why the animation was down, because the animation in this episode, they were saving the whole goddamn budget. Like, I still don't think it tops some of the best moments from the first season in terms of shading and color gradient.
Sure.
But the action and things, holy shit, dude. You have, so I don't want to give a play-by-play because that's not what we're here to do. But essentially, Conquest comes in at the end of the last episode, says, I'm gonna fuck up your planet. Have you prepared your planet for me? And he does, dude. He fucks the planet up. And you kind of have, and I'm going to jump around so much, but you have the scene where it is literally a almost one-to-one recreation of the subway scene from the first season, where he grabs him and he's just tearing through people on the beach. You watch a kid get his arm ripped off in that scene. It's child. Brutal.
It is brutal.
Like, they don't hold back. Like, it is devastating. It is brutal. The world just went through all these marks coming through and destroying the world. Hundreds of thousands of people died. They haven't even recovered remotely. And then Conquest comes in and it's like, yeah, fuck you. And Oliver almost dies. Oliver gets in there, gets fucking all of his teeth kicked in. He gets almost stretched. Dude, I thought Oliver was going to die. I did. I thought he was going to get ripped in half. I was like, holy shit. And I will preface this, one of the reasons I thought he was going to die is because you had texted me before I'd even started watching the episode, because I had heard, was fuck this show, fuck Invincible, what the fuck is going on? And when I got to that scene, I thought that was what was going to be. Now I know it was the Adam Eve stuff, but I was like, no way they're about to kill Oliver, because that would flip a switch in Mark. Now, the Adam Eve stuff flips the switch in Mark, and I'm going to stop rambling to let you talk for a second, because I have so much more to say. But like, dude, so much shit happened.
So with enough time given, and you know what? I'm going to preface by saying this. It very well could change. I truly believe this is the best episode Invincible has ever released. And I think it's from an emotional standpoint, a character standpoint. A lot of big things happen in this episode. And it's all... This episode really connects to everything that came before, specifically in season 3. And the thing I wanted to point out, and this is one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about, was this whole season 3 has been about, it's got a bunch of different things to it, but it's been about pretty much the backlash of what happened with Omni-Man and Invincible all the way back in season 1. That's pretty much what this season has been. Starting off with,
be expected.
Right. You know, you start off with Cecil and Mark's fallout, which basically is Cecil. I don't trust you, Mark. We're friends right now, but you could end up being just like your dad. And then you have Powerplex coming in saying, look what you did to all these people, and you've never once faced the music or like accepted responsibility for what you did. And then you have all the Invincibles come in. And literally last week, we talked about how Powerplex's final scene before he's taken off screen again is him telling all his friends, this is what Invincible did. Like, this is what he can do. Like, this is what I've been trying to say this whole time. And it's like you said not more than a few minutes ago, they don't even get a chance to breathe. Their city has not just their city. Every city across the entire world has just been obliterated by multiple Invincibles. And now we're dealing with the irony of, we've been dealing with the backlash from Omni-Man and Invincible's fight. And now we have another Omni-Man in Conquest coming.
Arguably stronger than Omni-Man. Like,
Well, and this was the thing I was actually going to ask you, and it can be just a simple yes or no. You can explain it how you want. Do you think that the only reason Conquest was stronger than Omni-Man is because Omni-Man was not intentionally trying to kill Mark or hurt him that much because he is technically his son?
okay, so I'll give a little bit more than a yes or no because I do.
Mhm.
So again, I haven't read the source material, but I have
Mhm.
heard. So Conquest is the oldest living
Yeah.
Viltrumite that is a part of his character.
Yes.
So I do think that there is a degree to which some of it is his dad holding back. I do agree, but I do think that there is something to give where he is the oldest Viltrumite, therefore he is probably one of the strongest just because he's lived so long, and that's a big part of the Viltrumites is like you live long, you conquer in battle, you get stronger. So like I think it's kind of a 50-50 where like part of it is because his dad was holding back against
Mhm.
Mark specifically,
Right.
obviously not against the rest of the world.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but but yeah, I think it's kind of like a yes and no.
Right. Well, and I wanted to ask that specifically because obviously I felt a lot of pain this episode. Specifically, the first time I think in an Invincible episode since maybe the first episode that I have felt pain. And it first
Dude.
happened when Mark's femur snapped in half and went straight through his leg. I grabbed my leg when that happened and just went,
Mhm.
"Oh, oh, oh."
Mhm.
And then you already mentioned like the similarities between like the first finale, season 1 finale and the season 3 finale with
Mhm.
like, okay, Conquest is now driving Mark's face through a bunch of people on the beach, and it's so much worse because it's a friggin' child. Like you see this child's
Yeah.
arm go clean off. I
Yeah.
this
No, not
this was
clean off.
my
Brutally torn. It's not like a clean breaker. It is brutally torn off by
I
the force of them flying through the city. I think it might have been Miami, to be honest.
God,
I don't know exactly where, but it looked like Miami.
it probably was Miami. My God, dude, I'm always so shocked by that show. And I always it's the same thing with The Boys, and it was the same thing with Game of Thrones, which is I don't see how they could make this any worse. I don't see how this could possibly get any worse from any like and then they do it. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And
Yeah.
the
They
thing
they
I
take it
love
so much farther than you ever would have guessed that they would. You're like, oh my god, like you think the metro scene is the worst it's gonna get, and then you watch this season finale and you're like, what the fuck did I just watch?
well, and that's specifically what I loved about this episode a lot. And again, I feel like it's like a complementary piece to each other. You really can't enjoy this episode without having that Invincible season 1 finale.
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah,
the
absolutely.
the similarities and the comparisons between the two, and then when you get to the season 3 finale specifically, and how it's taken to a whole different level, is just so absurdly. It's so cool, but it's so heartbreaking and it is
Oh yeah.
tragic,
Oh
especially because,
yeah.
like you already said, all these people are just now recovering from a multi-invincible attack, and now they have to deal with another Omni-Man attack. Like,
They can't catch
I
a break.
friggin'
They can't catch a break.
loved it. One thing I really wanted to talk about, and this is just a bit of meta humor. I cheered so hard when Conquest died, not just because of the
Oh
actions
dude,
that
I
led up to it, but
when they
there's
were in
a
their final fight, I like butt cheeks, fists, toes were all clenched so hard in pure rage. Like when Mark was raging, beating his skull into Conquest,
yeah,
I was probably definitely not just as angry, but like, dude, I wanted him to rip
yeah,
him to shreds.
yeah. Yeah, and so obviously I felt an extreme amount of excitement when that happened, but I felt excitement for a completely other reason that has nothing to do with Invincible. So for reference, I didn't know this last episode. I would have brought this up last episode had I known. It wasn't until I saw the casting for it. I didn't even hear it in his voice.
Oh,
Conquest
I
was
know what you're
played
gonna talk
by
about.
Conquest was played
Yep.
by one of my favorite actors, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who is a big actor. He's
Mm-hmm.
played many roles over the years, but most notably, in my opinion, plays the role of Negan on The
Yup.
Walking Dead.
Correct.
Which Stephen Young, who plays Invincible in the show Invincible, also plays a character called Glenn Rhee in The Walking Dead. slight spoilers for The Walking Dead, but the other reason I was so excited is because in a season of The Walking Dead, Negan teaches the entire group a lesson by taking a baseball bat to Glenn's fucking face and bashes his brains in, so it's a bloody goo mess of nothing. And it is one of the only moments in television history, other than Game of Thrones, which we'll get to that at some point, in which I've actually shut off the television and went, I think I'm going to take a break for a bit. And I didn't come back to it for like a month. It was heartbreaking and it was horrible. And as I said, Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays Conquest in this show. And I was so excited seeing Mark bash his brains in because I genuinely stood up and I went, justice for Glenn, for Glenn. Also, ironically, the fun thing about it is both stories of The Walking Dead and Invincible are created by Robert Kirkman.
Yep.
Which is why I'm also like, did they plan this?
Okay, so I was gonna pose this because I haven't seen The Walking Dead, but I did hear about this by watching other people's reactions and reviews. The scene is 1-for-1 in the comics where he bashes his skull in and things like that. And obviously, I think Stephen Young was cast as Invincible for very separate reasons.
Right.
I think the casting of Conquest was very deliberate. I very much think. Now, granted, he does a phenomenal job. Holy shit.
Great.
But I think it was very. I think it was deliberate. I think it was a bit of like vindication to a degree. So I do think that was on purpose.
It was Robert Kirkman going, "Hey guys, I'm really sorry I killed your character. I can kill him in another show. Yep. Here you go."
Yep.
But back so cool.
Yeah, but like with that, one of the things with that scene specifically was they tried to do some character building with Conquest, where he's a psychopath. Like you can tell, like he is a absolute lunatic. They fly up into space. He spits out his own blood and makes a heart of it and flicks it after a freak. Like he is insane. He loves killing. He is unbelievably brutal. He loves it. He licks Eve's blood off of his fucking hand after he shoves it through her fucking body. You see Eve's split intestines as she falls. That's how fucking brutal it is. And he's sitting there laughing and licking her. He is insane. But then you skip to right before Mark starts bashing his head in. Well, I guess before Eve incinerates him, and then and then Mark starts bashing his head in. Is he leans into Mark and essentially says, "I'm so fucking lonely. Like I do nothing but kill." Like I'm paraphrasing a lot here, but essentially, he's like, "I just kill. I am so insanely brutal and demented to the point where even the other Viltrumites hate him. They send him on these missions to do things that even they don't want to." And the Viltrumites are known as like the most authoritative, brutalistic. So the fact that he is hated for being too brutal by his own people is they did that. Funny enough, it's to a degree. Like they did it in a way where it feels like you're supposed to like feel bad for him, but it makes his death mean more in a way. We're like happy that he dies. Well, he spoiler alert, he doesn't die. Cecil puts him in a box. He's not dead.
Guys, Cecil, you're such an idiot. Oh my god.
Okay. So I watched Moist Critical's review of season 3, and one of the comments that he makes of his biggest problem with this final episode is that scene in particular. Mainly because not because Cecil puts him in a box, it's because Cecil doesn't do enough as a precautionary method. No. So one thing I will say, I think it is totally in character for Cecil to do what he did in terms of capturing the villain. Cecil does what people don't want him to do for what he thinks is the greater good. Now, right or wrong, I kind of agree with Cecil a lot of the time, even over Mark. But this one I cannot agree with. I think he should have incinerated the fucking body and waited for Omni-Man. Well, I guess you can't wait for Omni-Man to come back. They don't know anything about that. But like, fuck it, just incinerate the goddamn body. Because we all know he's gonna break out. It's kind of obvious. Like, you don't really need to have read the comic books to know that. Why would they show us this if it wasn't gonna be a thing? I'm curious to see. where it goes. But I will say it is very in character for Cecil to do that. He does make a comment where he says even if he so much as twitches, this place goes sky high. Like, he thinks he's doing everything, and so this is me reading into it. This is me fully imposing my own thoughts onto this. I think that one of the reasons why Cecil didn't do more, and I guess this is my own, like, again, headcanon self-justification, to not hate that scene as much as I feel like a lot of people are, is so much has happened recently. Cecil has seen the destruction and killing of so many people. Like, it's been such a bad and stressful time. He's not really able to think through all of his actions right now. He's kind of just doing this because he's afraid that more is going to come, and he's more worried about getting it done than getting it done as right as he could. Like, it kind of seems like a quickly, I know that saying like, oh, a bunch of titanium or whatever it is in a blocks isn't like, oh, it's not easy. You can't just throw that together in an afternoon. But like, I do think that to a certain degree, Cecil is kind of playing defensive right now, and Cecil's used to playing offensive. And that's where this is a defensive move where he's not as used to being put in this type of position. Again, you can make all the arguments you want, but this is kind of how I'm reading it. It's like maybe Cecil he's kind of not in his right mind space right now because he just all he wants to do is figure out how to prevent more people from dying. Cecil genuinely cares. Whether he goes about it the right way or not, Cecil genuinely cares. And I think that's why he did it. Well, I kind of know that's why he did it, but I think that's kind of why he didn't go through all the right precautions, because he is kind of just being reactionary, which you can say is out of character, but fuck you. The man just saw half the fucking planet destroyed. What do you mean it's out of character? You go through that. Oh, yeah, he's headstrong. Fuck off. Like, dude, just saw hundreds of thousands of people die, and he wants to prevent it from happening again. Maybe he should think about it more. Well, what the fuck would you do if you were in that situation? Tell me a better solution as not just a person watching this on television. Like, I get that it's a fictional world, but think about it from his position of he wants to do everything in his power to prevent this from happening again because he knows that this will.
Right.
And he just wants to get it over with and get it done as fast as possible. And he can't always be the smartest person in the room. Like, that's right. I know I cut you off there, but like that.
No, please.
That's kind of my justification for like, I understand why maybe Cecil, and again, I could be totally off base. I haven't read the comic books. I don't know if they give a justification. I don't know. But I think if that is, or if they never explain a justification, that will be my justification, because I think it could and does make sense.
Right. I honestly, as you say that, I honestly do agree with everything you say. That's what I was going to say. I still think Cecil's an idiot because it's obviously it's going to backfire.
Absolutely.
Obviously it's going to backfire. But I think you said that exactly right. I do want to like go back quickly because you obviously mentioned Conquest's big character moment building line right before he dies. And he is a psychopath. You're right. He's a psychopath. Yeah. And that's why I think in that moment you come to understand, like, there is a reason why he tells Mark, because Conquest truly thinks I'm going to kill Mark. I'm going to win. He doesn't know Eve's going to do what she's about to do. He thinks he's going to kill Mark.
No one did, really.
And the thing with a psychopath, this is something that I loved with the character of Dexter. And I'll explain this in a second with an example from him as well. The only person you can tell your darkest secret or something you would never tell anybody else, the only person you can tell that to is to somebody who you can assure is not going to be alive to tell anybody else after.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously Conquest leans into his work and leans into the image that everybody has made him, which is this brutalistic, psychopathic maniac killer who goes too far when it comes to taking over the planet. It's honestly, it's one of the tropes in a character that I love about a psychopathic type of person. It's like I said, Dexter, it's similar to that character. There's every time Dexter as a serial killer has somebody on his table and is getting ready to kill him, it's like he's honest, like, hey man, look, you've done some pretty bad stuff. how do you make that work with your family, and how do you live your double life? Because he himself is trying to figure it
Getting
out.
me therapy advice while
No,
killing
it's
someone.
like an episode of Full House, but with a serial killer. It's like, okay, here's the
Hmm.
daily life lesson that you're gonna learn, but you're gonna learn it through another person who you're about to kill in like a few seconds, and that's what I loved about Conquest's character, and it's such a subtle thing in a subtle moment,
Oh yeah.
but like he truly believes I'm going to kill Mark. Mark's not ever going to be able to tell anybody about this, so I'm going to tell the one person on this reality in this universe that this is how I feel because it can't possibly get out or go back to Viltrum by any means. Um, but you're right. It made
I
Conquest's death even more impactful because of that. And I was
yeah.
I was
I
I was grateful that Jeffrey Dean Morgan actually did the role and that he did really well. I loved everything about that character. I'm excited that he is technically not dead. Um, because I do want to see more of Jeffrey Dean Morgan in
Conquest
that role.
will return.
Conquest will return. The legendary Star-Lord will return, which we still haven't
Yep.
gotten anything from that, by the way. I do want to point that out.
We'll see it eventually. We'll see it eventually. Okay. We talked about Marvel last week, okay?
The one complaint I think I have with the entirety of season 3 is, and look, I shouldn't say this because in One Piece is something that builds over time. I wish we would have gotten something else more with Omni-Man and Alan, because we kind of just dropped them off after episode 4, and then the entire rest of the season we saw nothing from them. And so
Yeah.
I wish we would
Yeah.
have gotten a little more. But that's not like
Well,
a
and
necessary thing.
my only counter to that is, and it's very clear by the like ending of this episode where there's so many things being built out
Mhm.
and there's so much going on in this world as a whole. I think so. Robert Kirkman, the creator of Invincible, said he wants this show to go on for so long. I
Mhm.
think I've seen that in order to just adapt the source material, it's going to be about 7 seasons.
Yes, that's what I remember
Is
seeing
kind
too.
of the guesstimate. So like they have plenty of time, like 4 more seasons to build out this world,
Right.
and I think it's like I hear your criticisms, but I think this story, I actually kind of like it because we're supposed to see Mark's character growth without Omni Man, and
Sure.
I feel like if you show Omni Man a bunch, obviously whether it's interacting with Mark or not, it allows you less time to see Mark grow as a character and a human being.
Yes.
I have one more
Absolutely.
thing I want to talk about before we jump in because you mentioned One Piece. I want to hear your thoughts about One Piece. I have
Yep.
one more thing to say about Invincible before I move on, and that is my favorite scene of this entire episode. And it is a scene you probably won't like guess, but that is Rex's funeral was super emotional. It was
Yes.
super
Yes.
heartfelt and hard. But it wasn't that part. It was a part of his funeral.
Mhm.
And that was the scene where so Eve goes up to speak at Rex's funeral. Now Eve, Rex's ex-girlfriend, he cheated on her, treated her like shit. She broke up. Now she's with Mark.
Right. Right.
But one thing I really love, like I felt it so deep in my soul, where she's unapologetic, and the fact that she even says like she loved him. She was his like he was her first love. And yeah, she cheated on him a bunch of times, and yeah, he was a piece of shit, but that doesn't remove the love that she had for him. And
Right.
also, I love how Mark doesn't get jealous at all. Like, I feel like that's a really big, like, show of character. Now, granted, he has the whole thing of smiling because she's alive, so maybe he wasn't fully paying attention. But
Sure.
I really do like that they gave Eve that story, because I feel like a lot of times you see where it's like, whether in real life or um in fiction, where characters break up and you never see them again, or they never talk about them again, or they're a piece of
Right.
shit and they're the worst thing ever. And she definitely I guess maybe because it mirrors some events that had happened in my real life, why this scene meant so much to me, in the sense of basically forgiving him in a way where it's like, yeah, he cheated on me. Forgiveness might not even be the right term. Like, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't, where she still knows
Sure.
that he did a bunch of really bad shit in their relationship, but she accepts and understands and is mature enough to go, that doesn't remove the fact that I loved him. Like,
Right.
first love is something that is really undervalued in a way where yeah, you might not end up with them, but it still meant something. Like it really, it changes you in a way you can't expect. And I love that scene again, probably because it mirrors some events in my real life, but it was a really
sure.
powerful scene that I've never seen done in a show before, or even a movie. Like
Right.
I've never seen that type of character growth in a show, and I just love it.